The Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg and Shane Harris have shared more detailed screenshots of the attack plans that Trump's advisors shared on Signal after the administration downplayed the importance of the text messages that were inadvertently sent to the Atlantic's editor-in-chief. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth claimed that nobody was texting war plans. At the Senate hearing, Tulsi Gabbard also tried claiming that there was no classified material that was shared in that Signal group. The director of the CIA, John Radcliffe, said that my communications, to be clear, in the Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information. And President Donald Trump, asked yesterday afternoon about the same matter, said it wasn't classified information. The Atlantic goes on to say that these statements present them with a dilemma. They say that as a general rule, they don't publish information about military operations if the information could possibly jeopardize the lives of U.S. personnel. But after the attacks took place, and Hegseth, Gabbard, Ratcliffe, and Trump, combined with the assertions made by numerous administration officials that they're lying about the content of the Signal text, have led the reporters to believe that people should see the text in order to reach their own conclusions. Okay, so from about a week ago, in the group chat that they named Houthi PC Small Group, in which you can see where it shows Michael Waltz added you to the group, as in Michael Waltz added Jeffrey Goldberg to the group. And then it shows a couple messages from Michael Waltz talking about establishing a principals group for coordination on the Houthis, and then telling the group to provide the best staff, POC, or point of contact from your team for us to coordinate with over the next couple of days over the weekend. And then it has whoever MAR is, mentioning Mike Needham for state, then JD Vance mentioning Andy Baker for VP, and then whoever TG is mentioning Joe Kent for DNI, Scott Bessem maybe, and then Pete Hegseth mentions Dan Caldwell for DOD, Brian someone, maybe he's mentioning himself because it says Brian McCormack for NSC. And then Michael Waltz says, team, you should have a statement of your conclusions with taskings per the president's guidance this morning in your high side inboxes. State and DOD, we developed suggested notification lists for regional allies and partners. Then JD Vance has this kind of what might be a bit of a rant, this kind of interesting. He says, team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we are making a mistake. 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez Canal. 40% of European trade does. There's a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, to send a message, but I am not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I am willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there is a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. This kind of seems to fly in the face of where some people, such as the press secretary, have tried to say that the Biden administration failed to take out the Houthis, but now they're doing what needs to be done. Joe Kent says there is nothing time-sensitive driving the timeline. We'll have the exact same options in a month. The Israelis will likely take strikes and therefore ask us for more support to replenish whatever they use against the Houthis, but that's a minor factor. I will send you the unclassed data we pulled on BAM shipping. John Radcliffe says, from CIA perspective, we are mobilizing assets to support now, but a delay would not negatively impact us, and additional time would be used to identify better starting points for coverage on Houthi leadership. Then Pete Hegseth says, VP, I understand your concerns and fully support your raising with the President of the United States important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out: economy, Ukraine peace, Gaza, etc. I think messaging is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we need to stay focused on: one, Biden failed, and two, Iran funded. Waiting a few weeks or a month does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two, immediate risk on waiting. This leaks, and we look indecisive. Two, Israel takes an action first, or Gaza ceasefire falls apart, and we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. We are prepared to execute, and if I had final go or no go vote, I believe we should. This not about the Houthis, which she probably should have said. This is not about the Houthis, but whatever. I see it as two things: restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest, and to reestablish deterrence, which Biden cratered, allegedly. But we can easily pause, and if we do, I will do all we can to enforce 100% OPSEC. I welcome other thoughts. Michael Waltz says the trade figures we have are 15% of global and 30% of container. It's difficult to break that down to U.S. specific because much of the container either going through the Red Sea still or around the Cape of Good Hope are components going to Europe that turns into manufactured goods for transatlantic trade to the United States. It's a little bit difficult to read the way he wrote this. Whether we pull the plug or not today, European navies do not have the capability to defend against the types of sophisticated anti-ship, cruise missiles, and drones the Houthis are now using. So whether it's now or several weeks from now, it will have to be the United States that reopens these shipping lanes. Per the President's request, we are working with the DoD and state to determine how to compile the costs associated and levy them to the Europeans. And he goes on to say, as we stated in the first PC, we have a fundamental decision of allowing the sea lanes to reopen, close, or to reopen them now or later. We are the only ones with the capability, unfortunately. From a messaging standpoint, we absolutely add this to of horribles on why the Europeans much invest in their defense. And then JD Vance says, at P. Hegseth, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. And JD Vance says to Pete Hegseth, if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. Let's just make sure our messaging is tight here. If there are things we can do up front to minimize risk to Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. Of course, with a lot of these people, it's always transactional. Doesn't matter that these people that we're helping out are supposed to be our allies, as well as helping out trade lanes for us as well, even if it is a small percent. Pete Hegseth says, VP, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. No, actually, what is pathetic is to actually think this way, and you're the defense secretary. He says, but Mike is correct. We are the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else can even close. Question is timing. I feel like now is as good a time as any, given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space. SM, which is probably Stephen Miller, he says, as I heard it, the president was clear, green light, but we soon make clear to Egypt and Europe what we expect in return. We also need to figure out how to enforce such a requirement. E.g., if Europe doesn't remunerate, then what? If the U.S. successfully restores freedom of navigation at great cost, there needs to be some further economic gain extracted in return. Hegseth says, agree. Then a couple hours later, at about 11:45, it says, team update, time now, 11:44, weather is favorable, just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. And then 12:15, F-18's launch, first strike package. 13:45, trigger-based F-18 first strike window starts. Target terrorist is at his known location, so should be on time. Also, strike drones launch, MQ-9s. At 2:10 p.m., more F-18s launch, second strike package. 2:15, strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop, pending earlier trigger-based targets. And then 15:36, F-18 second strike starts. Also, first sea-based Tomahawks launched. And he says, more to follow per timeline. We are currently clean on OPSEC. Godspeed to our warriors. And JD Vance says, I will say a prayer for victory. Then you can see where it says, Michael Waltz set disappearing message time to 4 weeks. And this is what is controversial, and part of the reason why people are saying that Signal should not be used for this kind of thing, because you're supposed to keep records, and it like goes against the Espionage Act. And Michael Waltz says VP building collapsed, had multiple positive ID. I don't know how they find that out or so quickly, but multiple positive ID. Pete Carilla, the IC, amazing job. JD Vance says what? Okay, yeah, I guess he was typing too fast, because Michael Waltz says typing too fast. The first target, their top missile guy. We had positive ID of him walking into his girlfriend's building, and now it's collapsed. JD Vance says excellent. And then John Ratcliffe says a good start. And then, as others have pointed out recently, that it just seems kind of sort of childish and like unprofessional or some whatever, however you want to put it. Michael Waltz puts a fist emoji, American flag, and a fire emoji. And then good job, Pete, and your team by MAR. I forget who that's supposed to be. Michael Waltz, the team in MAL did a great job as well. Stephen Miller, most likely, is who SM is, says great work all, powerful start. And then Hegseth, CENTCOM is on point. Great job all. More strikes ongoing for hours tonight, and will provide full initial report tomorrow. But on time, on target, and good readout so far. Susie Weil says kudos to all, most particularly those in theater and CENTCOM. Great, really great. God bless. Steve Whitcott shares some emojis, two either high-fiving or praying hands emojis, and a flexing muscle bicep emoji, and two American flags. TG says great work and effects. Here you can see the 19 members in the group. Jeffrey Goldberg, Michael Waltz, Scott Bessett, Walker Barrett, I forget who Brian is, and Jacob, PXF obviously, Dan Katz, Joe Kent, Stephen Miller probably, showing two identical entries, MAR, Mike Needham, John Ratcliffe, Susie Wiles, TG, JD Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Alex Wong. TG must be Tulsi Gabbard. But yeah, but somehow this was not classified information.
Recommend to the president, and nobody can deny the success of what the president is doing here, which is what Pete Hegseth just underscored. And this is what the leftist media is reduced to. They can't argue with the policies which the American people support. They can't argue with this new demonstration of American strength that is keeping Americans safe at home and abroad. And so now we're griping about who's on a text message and who's not. I mean,